My name is Claire. I'm 28, and I never expected my graphic design career would lead me back home to help save my family's struggling print shop. What started as an exciting chance to revitalize my parents' business quickly turned into a painful revelation. The shock of discovering my younger sister received generous payment while I worked for free still stings. My mother's cold words echo in my mind: "Your family, so you work for free." Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If you've ever felt undervalued by family, hit subscribe, because what happened next changed everything. I had built what I considered a dream life in New York. After graduating with honors in graphic design, I landed a job at Horizon Creative, a prestigious firm working with major brands nationwide. My Manhattan apartment was small, but mine decorated with framed prints of my favorite projects. I'd worked hard to establish myself, pushing through long nights and demanding clients to build a reputation for innovative, clean designs that communicated exactly what brands needed. The call from my father came on a Tuesday evening as I was finishing a project. His voice sounded strained, lacking the warmth and confidence I associated with him throughout my childhood. "Claire, sweetheart, I hate to ask this, but we're in trouble," he said, the background noise of the print shop machinery humming behind him. "Business has been declining for months. Everyone's going digital, and we just can't keep up with the changes." My parents had owned Franklin Family Printing for 25 years. What started as a small copy shop had grown into a respected local business, providing everything from business cards to banners for community events. But in the age of online marketing and digital communication, they were struggling to adapt. "We might have to close by the end of the year," Dad continued, his voice breaking slightly. "Your mother doesn't want to admit it, but we're barely covering costs." After hanging up, I spent the night researching the print industry's digital transformation. With my background, I knew I could help them modernize their services, develop an online presence, and expand their offerings to include digital marketing packages. It would mean putting my career on hold, but family came first. 2 weeks later, I requested a 6-month leave of absence from work, packed essential belongings, and took the train back to my hometown of Millfield, Pennsylvania. My apartment plants went to my neighbor, and I sublet my place to a colleague's cousin. Dad greeted me at the station with a bear hug that felt like home. "You have no idea how much this means to us, Claire." His eyes were tired, but hopeful. When we pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, my younger sister Tara bounded out the front door. At 23, she was finishing her business degree at the local community college, while helping with administrative work at the shop. "The prodigal daughter returns," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around me. We had always been different. Tara outgoing and social, while I was more reserved, but we'd generally gotten along well growing up. My mother appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. Her smile seemed tight as she offered a brief hug. "We appreciate you coming, Claire, though I'm sure New York will call you back soon enough." That night over dinner, I outlined my ideas for transforming the business. "You need to offer services that complement print, rather than trying to compete with online options. We could develop packages that include logo design, branded materials, and digital marketing assets." Dad nodded enthusiastically between bites of pot roast. "That's exactly what we need, fresh thinking." Mom's response was more measured. "These all sound expensive to implement. We're barely staying afloat as it is." "The initial investment will be minimal," I explained. "I can handle the website redesign, create templates for digital offerings, and train you both on basic maintenance. The biggest cost is time, which I'm contributing." "And how long do you plan to stay?" Mom asked, her tone suggesting she was already counting down to my departure. "I took a 6-month leave, but I'll stay as long as necessary to get things running smoothly," I answered confidently. My old bedroom felt smaller than I remembered, the twin bed barely accommodating my adult frame. The walls still held posters from design exhibitions I'd attended in college, early inspirations for the career I'd built. As I unpacked, I felt a strange mix of nostalgia and regression, wondering if coming back had been the right choice. The next morning, I got my first good look at the shop in years. Franklin Family Printing occupied a storefront in the town's main business district. The interior was cluttered with outdated equipment, sample books, and stacks of paper. The walls displayed the same samples that had been there when I left for college, faded from years of sunlight. We haven't had time to update much, Dad admitted, noticing my assessment. Business started slowing about 2 years ago, and we've been in survival mode since. I immediately began taking inventory of their equipment, services, and client list. Their website was basic and hadn't been updated in years. Their social media presence was non-existent. Their logo, designed when they first opened, looked dated and didn't translate well to digital formats. By the end of my first week, I had created a new logo that honored the original while making it cleaner and more versatile. I developed mock-ups for a responsive website that would showcase their services and allow clients to request quotes online. I designed marketing materials that could be used across platforms. Dad was ecstatic when I presented my initial work. "This is exactly what we needed. You've captured our essence but made it modern." Mom examined the designs with a critical eye. "The colors seem a bit bright, and I'm not sure about changing the logo. People know us by the old one." "Brand refreshes are normal and expected," I explained patiently. "The core elements remain, but updating shows clients you're evolving with the times." Tara contributed by organizing client information and helping me understand their current processes. She seemed genuinely interested in my expertise, asking questions about design principles and digital marketing strategies. We fell into an easy rhythm of collaboration, reminding me of the good times we'd shared as kids before competition and comparison complicated things. As days turned into weeks, I noticed positive changes. Regular customers commented on the new designs. The website, once launched, brought in inquiry forms from potential new clients. I started creating social media content, highlighting completed projects and special offers. For the first time in months, Dad seemed energized rather than defeated when discussing the business. I began to think that maybe this temporary return home could be the beginning of something truly meaningful, a chance to leave a lasting impact on my family's legacy. I had no idea how quickly that optimism would be shattered. 3 weeks after I arrived, I was working late on new templates when I overheard my mother and Tara talking in the office. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but Mom's words stopped me cold. "I've transferred your payment for the week plus the bonus for the Johnson account," she said. "Thanks, Mom," Tara replied. "The extra helps a lot with tuition this semester." I sat frozen at my desk, confusion washing over me. Payment bonus. In the 3 weeks I'd been working 12-hour days, redesigning everything from the ground up, not once had compensation been mentioned. I'd assumed we were all pulling together to save the family business, contributing what we could. The next morning, while everyone was busy with customers, I accessed the business accounting software, justifying to myself that I needed to understand the financial situation to develop appropriate pricing strategies. What I found made my stomach drop. Tara received not just a weekly salary, but regular bonuses despite working part-time while attending school. The amounts were substantial, especially for a small, struggling business. I scrolled through months of records, finding the same pattern dating back years. My mind raced with questions. Was I expected to work for free because I had a successful career elsewhere? Did they value Tara's contribution more? Was this why Mom seemed hesitant about my return, knowing this disparity would eventually come to light? I waited until closing time to speak with Dad privately, my heart pounding as I brought up the subject. "Dad, I noticed Tara is on payroll," I began carefully. "I've been working full-time for weeks now, and compensation hasn't been mentioned." Dad's face flushed as he suddenly became very interested in organizing receipt papers. "Well, Tara has been with the business continuously while you built your career in New York." "I understand that, but I've put my career on hold to help here," I replied. "Shouldn't there be some equity in how family members are compensated?" He sighed, shoulders slumping. "It was your mother's decision. She manages the finances, and she felt that since you have a job to return to, and Tara is still building her future." His voice trailed off unconvincingly. "So I'm expected to work for free, while Tara gets paid and receives bonuses." I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. "Talk to your mother," he said, avoiding my eyes. "It's her department." I found Mom in the supply room, inventorying paper stock. Taking a deep breath, I approached the subject as professionally as possible. Mom, I'd like to discuss compensation. I've been working full time for nearly a month now, implementing changes that are already bringing in new business. She barely looked up from her clipboard. What about it? I noticed Tara receives a salary and bonuses. I think it's reasonable that my contribution be valued similarly. Mom put down her clipboard, fixing me with a stern look. Claire, you're family. Family helps family without expecting payment. You have a high-paying job in New York to go back to. Tara is still establishing herself. But Tara is family too, I pointed out, trying to keep my voice level. Why does she get paid while I'm expected to work for free? You're family, so you work for free? She snapped, her tone making it clear the discussion was over. Tara needs the financial support right now. You don't. I left the supply room hurt and angry. Later that evening, I confronted Tara directly, finding her in the kitchen texting on her phone. Did you know Mom expects me to work without pay while you receive a salary? I asked without preamble. Tara looked up, not nearly as surprised as she should have been. Mom and Dad make those decisions, not me, she said with a shrug. Don't you think it's unfair? We're both their daughters. Just then, Tara's phone lit up with a notification. I caught a glimpse of the banking app showing a substantial deposit. She smirked as she saw me notice it. Maybe you're just not worth it, she said casually, the words cutting deep. I stood there, speechless, memories flooding back. Of similar moments throughout our childhood, Tara always received the newest clothes while I got hand-me-downs. She got a car for her 16th birthday while I took the bus until I could save for my own. When I needed help with college, tuition loans were suggested, but Tara's education was fully funded. This wasn't new. This was just the adult version of a lifetime pattern I had tried to ignore or justify. As I walked back to my room, I wondered if I had been naive to think I could return home and be valued as an equal. Despite the revelation about compensation, I continued working on the business renovation. I told myself I was doing it for Dad, who always supported my creative pursuits, even when Mom dismissed them as impractical. I was doing it because I had promised. I was doing it because walking away felt like failure. Each morning, I arrived early to work on website updates and design new marketing materials. I created templates for digital newsletters that complemented print mailings, developed an online ordering system for repeat customers, and established social media accounts that showcased completed projects. But as the business began improving, Mom's criticism of my work intensified rather than diminished. Nothing was ever quite right. The colors were too bold, the fonts were too modern, the social media posts weren't professional enough. Each suggestion I made was met with resistance, then reluctantly implemented, and finally criticized regardless of outcome. One afternoon, I joined a meeting with a potential new client who had specifically mentioned being impressed by our website. As I prepared to introduce myself as the designer, Mom smoothly cut in. Tara has been instrumental in our digital transformation, she said, gesturing to my sister. She's applying her business degree to modernizing our approach. Tara nodded confidently, adding, I saw that our clients needed more integrated services that bridge traditional print with digital marketing. I sat stunned as my sister took credit for concepts and designs I had spent weeks developing. When I tried to contribute to the conversation, Mom smoothly redirected. By the meeting's end, the client was congratulating Tara on her vision, while I sat silently fuming. Why did you let Tara take credit for my work? I asked Mom afterward. Tara needs to build her professional reputation, Mom replied dismissively. You already have a successful career. Besides, this is a family business and we present as a unified team. A unified team? That somehow didn't include me when it came to recognition or compensation. Despite these frustrations, the business was undeniably improving. New clients mentioned finding us through the website. Existing clients appreciated the digital proofing system I'd implemented that saved them trips to the shop. Social media engagement was growing steadily. Even Mom had to acknowledge that orders had increased 15% since I'd arrived. Dad noticed too. The Johnson account doubled their usual order after seeing the new design options, he told me proudly one evening. And the community center has asked us to quote for their annual fundraiser materials, which they usually order from the shop in the next county. These moments kept me going, the tangible evidence that my expertise was making a difference. I held on to them when Mom's criticism or Tara's smugness threatened to overwhelm me. One evening, Mom insisted on a family dinner to celebrate our progress. I anticipated some acknowledgement of my contribution, perhaps even a reconsideration of the compensation issue. Instead, the dinner became a showcase for Tara's supposedly brilliant business instincts. Tara suggested we offer package deals combining print and digital services, Mom said, describing an idea I had presented in my first week. The clients love the convenience. Dad glanced at me apologetically but remained silent. I pushed food around my plate, appetite gone. Then Tara pulled out her phone, showing off photos of a brand new laptop she'd purchased. It's top of the line perfect for creating those design mock-ups clients keep requesting. How nice that the business could provide you with new equipment, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Well, when you contribute value, you receive value in return, Mom replied. The breaking point came a few days later. I was finalizing designs for our biggest potential client yet, a local medical practice that wanted to completely rebrand. As I worked, Tara's phone chimed loudly. She picked it up, breaking into a wide smile. The bonus cleared, she announced to no one in particular, turning her screen to show me the notification for a payment that exceeded what most graphic designers make in 2 weeks. What's that for? I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. Mom says since the medical practice found us through my social media management, I deserve a commission when they sign. Something inside me snapped. Your social media management? I created every single post, designed every image, wrote every caption. You just clicked publish after I handed everything to you. Claire, calm down, Dad said, entering from the back office. We all contribute in different ways. No, we don't all contribute in different ways, I said, my voice rising. I contribute professionally with years of experience in education. Tara contributes by taking credit for my work while collecting a paycheck I'm denied because family works for free, unless that family member is Tara. Mom appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. You need to adjust your attitude, Claire. We welcomed you back to help the family business, not to create drama. Welcomed me back. Is that what you call this? Exploiting my skills while undermining my confidence and denying fair compensation. You've always had a flair for the dramatic, Mom said dismissively. If you want to discuss a stipend for expenses, we can consider it, but your sister has been loyal to this business while you were off building your career. I was invited back to save the business from failing, I countered, which I've been doing successfully for weeks while being treated like an outsider. Dad tried to intervene. Claire, honey, we appreciate everything you've done. No, she doesn't, I said, pointing at Mom. And you don't appreciate it enough to stand up for me, Dad. You never have. The truth hung in the air between us. I never wanted you to come back, Mom finally admitted. You always think you know better than everyone else with your fancy New York career. Tara has been here learning the business from the ground up. Then why accept my help at all? I asked, my voice breaking. Because your father insisted, she replied coldly. He still thinks you hung the moon. I looked to Dad, hoping he would finally defend me, acknowledge the unfairness. He looked at the floor, then mumbled, We should all calm down and discuss this rationally. In that moment, I saw with painful clarity that nothing would change. Mom would continue favoring Tara. Dad would continue enabling the dynamic. And I would continue being expected to give everything while receiving nothing in return, not even basic respect for my professional abilities. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I packed my belongings. I wrote a brief note explaining I couldn't continue working under these conditions. I left my house key on the kitchen counter. Before dawn, I slipped out the front door, closing it quietly behind me, unsure if I would ever return. The early morning air was crisp as I wheeled my suitcase down the quiet street, occasional streetlights illuminating the path ahead. I had texted my childhood friend Jennifer the night before asking if I could crash at her place temporarily. Her immediate, absolutely for as long as you need, was the only warmth in an otherwise cold departure. Jennifer lived in an apartment above the bookstore she managed downtown. She was waiting at the door when my rideshare dropped me off dressed in a bathrobe and holding 2 mugs of coffee. You look like hell, she said, pulling me into a hug. Come in and tell me everything. Over the next few hours, the story poured out of me, a flood of hurt, disappointment, and anger that I'd been suppressing for weeks. Jennifer listened without interruption, her expression shifting from surprise to outrage. "This is emotional abuse, Claire," she said when I finally finished. "They're gaslighting you about your contributions while exploiting your skills, and the way they're paying Tara but not you is financial abuse." I flinched at the terms. "They're my family, not abusers." "Family can absolutely be abusive," Jennifer insisted. "And what you're describing fits the pattern." She helped me set up on her pull-out couch, promising we would figure out next steps after I got some rest. I slept for 12 hours straight, my body finally releasing the tension it had been holding. When I awoke, I had several missed calls from Dad and a text asking where I was and if I was okay. I replied briefly that I was safe but needed space. I didn't mention where I was staying. The following days became a cycle of grief. I oscillated between crushing sadness at the family dynamics I'd finally acknowledged, burning anger at the exploitation, and paralyzing shock that I'd walked away from my family business. Dad called daily, his messages growing increasingly desperate. "Your mother didn't mean what she said," he claimed in one voicemail. "She was just stressed about finances. Please come home so we can talk this through as a family." I maintained my boundary firmly. I won't return without acknowledgement of how I've been treated and a commitment to change, including fair compensation for my work. Dad would promise to talk to Mom, then call back with watered-down offers that missed the point entirely. "Mom says we could pay you a small stipend for expenses," or "we could list you as a consultant on the website." What hurt most was that he never acknowledged the fundamental unfairness of the situation, or his role in enabling it. He wanted peace without justice, reconciliation without accountability. Meanwhile, Jennifer helped me look for short-term housing options and encouraged me to contact my employer about returning early from my leave of absence. But something held me back from immediately fleeing to New York. Some combination of unfinished business and wounded pride made me want to resolve the situation rather than escape it. A week after my departure, I began receiving messages from clients I'd worked with at the print shop. "Are you no longer with Franklin Family Printing?" One wrote. "We really appreciated your design perspective." Another was more direct. "Your mother told us you abandoned the business without notice. Is everything okay?" The misrepresentation stung but didn't surprise me. Of course, Mom would spin my departure as abandonment rather than acknowledge the conditions that made staying impossible. I responded professionally to each inquiry, explaining I was no longer with the company, but appreciated working with them. Jennifer watched me managing these communications with growing concern. "You know what bothers me most about this situation?" she said one evening as we shared takeout. "This isn't new behavior from your family. Remember when we were kids and your mom would always praise Tara's mediocre artwork while criticizing your genuinely talented creations?" I paused a forkful of pad thai halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean?" "Claire, your entire childhood was like this. Your mom constantly favored Tara while holding you to impossible standards. And your dad never stepped in. You just accepted it as normal because it was all you knew." Her words hit me like a physical blow. Memories surfaced of Tara's B grades celebrated, while my A grades were met with, "You could have gotten an A+ if you applied yourself." Of Mom displaying Tara's participation trophies prominently, while my art competition wins were mentioned as Claire's hobby. Of Dad's uncomfortable silence when these disparities were particularly glaring. "I think you've been trying to earn your mother's approval your whole life," Jennifer continued gently. "Coming back to save the family business was just the adult version of that pattern." That night, unable to sleep, I made a decision. I would stop trying to fix a family dynamic that had been broken long before the current crisis. Instead, I would focus on building something for myself. The next morning, I registered a domain name for my freelance design business. Using portfolio pieces I'd created for Franklin Family Printing, careful to remove their branding, I built a simple website advertising my services in brand development, print design, and digital marketing. I crafted a professional email and sent it to my personal contacts in the area, announcing my availability for design projects. The response was immediate and encouraging. 2 local businesses requested quotes that same day. As I worked on proposals, I received an unexpected call from an unknown number. It was Richard Keller, owner of Keller Medical Group, the large practice that had been considering Franklin Family Printing for their rebranding. "Claire, I was disappointed to hear you're no longer with Franklin," he said. "We were specifically interested in working with you after seeing your portfolio. Would you consider taking on our rebranding project independently?" I hesitated only briefly before answering, "I would be honored to discuss that possibility with you, Dr. Keller." We arranged a meeting for the following day. As I hung up, I felt a mixture of vindication and apprehension. I wasn't trying to steal clients from my family's business, but I also wouldn't turn down legitimate opportunities that came my way based on recognition of my skills. For the first time since leaving home, I felt a spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, this painful chapter could become the beginning of something better. Within 3 weeks of starting my freelance business, I had secured 4 clients, including Keller Medical Group. Their rebranding project alone provided enough income to rent a small studio apartment and set up a basic home office. My approach to client work reflected everything I wished had been different at Franklin Family Printing. I listened carefully to client needs, presented multiple concepts for feedback, and emphasized collaborative partnership. My clients appreciated being involved in the creative process while still deferring to my expertise in design principles. The Keller project became my portfolio centerpiece. I developed not just a new logo and brand identity, but a comprehensive marketing strategy that integrated traditional print materials with digital platforms. Keller was so pleased with the initial concepts that he expanded the scope to include website redesign and social media templates. "This is exactly what we needed," he told me during our third meeting. "You have a gift for translating our medical practice values into visual communication that feels both professional and approachable." Each positive client interaction helped rebuild the confidence that had been systematically undermined during my time at the family shop. I set professional boundaries around my availability and pricing, no longer feeling obligated to undervalue my contributions. Jennifer cheered my progress, helping me celebrate each milestone. When I moved into my own apartment, she organized a small housewarming with mutual friends, presenting me with a framed print that read, "Your worth is not determined by others' ability to value you." But as my business grew, I hired a part-time virtual assistant to help manage administrative tasks, allowing me to focus on creative work. I established a professional network by joining the local Chamber of Commerce and attending business networking events. At one such event, I unexpectedly ran into a longtime client of Franklin Family Printing. After an initially awkward greeting, he shared that the quality of design work had noticeably declined since my departure. "Your parents won't admit it," he said, "but everyone can see the difference." Through these conversations, I learned that the business was struggling again without my design expertise. Tara had attempted to maintain the systems I'd implemented, but lacked the technical skills to properly execute them. The website wasn't being updated, social media accounts were dormant, and the innovative design templates I'd created weren't being utilized effectively. Dad's calls had become less frequent, but more authentic. In our most recent conversation, he had finally admitted, "We made a mistake, Claire, not just about the compensation, but about how we valued your contribution." While this acknowledgement was meaningful, I maintained appropriate distance, focusing on building my own business rather than rushing back to fix theirs. The space had allowed me to start healing from patterns of family dynamics that therapy was helping me understand had shaped much of my life. My therapist, Dr. Marshall, helped me recognize how I had internalized messages about my worth being tied to productivity and achievement. "You were the family achiever," she explained, "expected to excel, but never praised for it, while your sister was rewarded for much less effort." These insights were painful but liberating. I began to understand that my drive for perfection and tendency to overwork stemmed from a deep-seated belief that I had to earn love through extraordinary achievement, a belief fostered by years of unequal family treatment. Around the 3-month mark of my independent business, I received a surprise visitor at my small office space. Dad stood awkwardly in the doorway, a potted plant in his hands. "Your mother doesn't know I'm here," he said by way of greeting. "May I come in?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk, noting how much older he looked than when I'd left. The strain of recent months had deepened the lines around his eyes. "Your business looks successful." he said, glancing around the modest but well-organized space. It's growing steadily, I acknowledged. What brings you here, Dad? He placed the plant on the edge of my desk. Peace lily. They thrive even in low light. Then clearing his throat. I owe you an apology, Claire. Not just for the recent situation, but for years of not standing up for you. The directness surprised me. Dad had always communicated in roundabout ways, especially when emotions were involved. I've enabled your mother's favoritism toward Tara for your entire lives, he continued. I told myself I was keeping the peace, but really I was being a coward. I was afraid of your mother's disapproval, so I let you bear the brunt of it instead. My eyes filled with tears. This was the acknowledgement I had waited for my entire life without even realizing it. Why now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Because seeing what you've built here on your own made me realize how much we squandered your talents, and because the business is failing without you. But mostly because I miss my daughter, and I'm tired of pretending everything is fine when our family is broken. For the first time in our relationship, Dad and I had a truly honest conversation. He shared his own frustrations in the marriage, how Mom's controlling nature had gradually eroded his confidence over decades. He explained that Tara had been favored in part because she emulated Mom's personality and priorities, while my independent thinking and creativity reminded Mom too much of herself before she'd compromised her own artistic ambitions. None of this excuses how you were treated, he finished. I just want you to know it was never about you not being enough. If anything, you were too much, too talented, too independent for her to control. As he left, he asked if I might consider helping the business again, not as a daughter working for free, but as a professional consultant with a formal contract and appropriate compensation. Think about it, he said. No pressure. We'll respect whatever you decide. I promised to consider it, though I had serious reservations about working with my mother again under any circumstances. Still, Dad's visit had cracked open a door I thought permanently closed, allowing in a sliver of possibility for a new kind of family relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than obligation. The invitation to the Millfield Small Business Innovation Awards arrived 6 months after I'd left Franklin Family Printing. My nomination in the Digital Transformation category recognized the work I'd done helping local businesses adapt to changing market conditions. Jennifer insisted we go shopping for a new outfit. This is a big deal, Claire, your first public recognition as an independent business owner. As we browsed dresses, I confessed my anxiety about potentially encountering my family at the event. Franklin Family Printing has been nominated almost every year in some category. They're bound to be there. So what if they are? Jennifer replied, holding up a deep blue dress against me. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You've built something impressive in a short time. This is your night to shine. The evening of the ceremony, I arrived at the Millfield Community Center with Jennifer as my +1, wearing the blue dress and a confidence that felt only slightly forced. The main hall had been transformed with round tables, subtle lighting, and a small stage at the front. As we checked the seating chart, my stomach dropped. Franklin Family Printing was indeed attending their table position just 2 away from mine. I scanned the room, spotting them almost immediately. Dad in his best suit, Mom looking elegant but tense, and Tara animatedly chatting with people at a neighboring table. We can request a different table, Jennifer offered, noticing my discomfort. I squared my shoulders. No, I belong here as much as they do. We made our way to our assigned seats, inevitably passing near my family's table. Dad saw me first, his face lighting up with genuine pleasure, before uncertainty clouded his expression. He half rose, hesitating, then approached with careful steps. Claire, it's good to see you, he said warmly. You look wonderful. Thank you, I replied, aware of Mom and Tara watching intently from their table. Congratulations on your nomination. And to you as well. Very well deserved. The awkward exchange might have ended there, but Mom surprised me by joining Dad. Her greeting was cool, but not hostile. Your business seems to be doing well. She observed, her tone inscrutable. It is, thank you, I replied politely. Tara remained at the table, her expression oscillating between resentment and curiosity. The ceremony began before further interaction was necessary, a relief, as I wasn't sure how long the fragile civility could be maintained. The first several categories recognized achievements in community impact, customer service, and sustainability. When the digital transformation category was announced, I felt Jennifer squeeze my hand supportively. The presenter described how the award recognized businesses that had successfully bridged traditional methods with innovative digital approaches. And the winner is Claire Franklin of Franklin Design Studio. The room erupted in applause as I made my way to the stage, still processing the announcement. I hadn't prepared a speech, assuming one of the more established businesses would win. Standing at the microphone, looking out at a room filled with community business leaders, I found myself speaking from the heart. Thank you for this recognition. When I started my business 6 months ago, it was born from a belief that valuing oneself is not selfish but necessary. We cannot serve others effectively when we allow ourselves to be undervalued. I paused, making brief eye contact with Dad, whose proud smile gave me courage to continue. Every business represented here tonight provides something valuable to our community. But the most successful ones understand that value flows both ways, creating relationships of mutual respect and appreciation. I'm grateful to my clients who recognize the worth of professional design services, and to this community for welcoming my new venture. Thank you. The applause as I returned to my seat felt validating in a way I hadn't realized I needed. Throughout the remainder of the ceremony, I caught Dad glancing my way repeatedly, his expression a mixture of pride and regret. As the formal proceedings concluded and attendees began mingling, I steeled myself for whatever might come next. To my surprise, it was Mom who approached me first, maneuvering through the crowd with determined steps. "May I speak with you privately?" she asked, her tone uncharacteristically uncertain. We stepped into a quiet corridor off the main hall. For a long moment, Mom simply studied me, as if seeing me clearly for the first time in years. "Your speech was well delivered," she finally said. "You always did have a way with words." "Thank you," I replied neutrally, waiting for whatever would come next. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted, looking away. "I'm not good at admitting when I'm wrong." The acknowledgement, even in this oblique form, was so unexpected that I remained silent, afraid that any response might derail whatever process was unfolding. "The business is struggling without your expertise," she continued. "The systems you put in place were more complex than we realized. Clients keep asking for you specifically." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully. "But I'm sure you'll find your way forward." "Your father wants you to come back as a consultant," she said abruptly. "He thinks we should pay you properly for your expertise." "And what do you think, Mom?" She sighed deeply. "I think I've been unfair to you for a very long time. And I think my pride has cost our family business dearly." It wasn't quite an apology, but from my mother, it was seismic. Before I could formulate a response, Tara appeared in the corridor. "What's going on?" she demanded, looking between us suspiciously. "I'm discussing business with Claire," Mom replied. "You want her to come back after she abandoned us." Tara's voice rose indignantly. "After she took the Keller account that could have saved us." "The Kellers sought me out directly," I corrected calmly. "And I left because I was being exploited, not because I wanted to hurt the business." "You always think you're so special," Tara snapped, "just because you went to fancy design school and worked in New York." "That's enough, Tara," Mom said sharply, surprising both of us. "Claire's expertise is valuable, and we failed to recognize that. We're paying for that mistake now." Tara stared at Mom in disbelief. "You're taking her side. After everything I've done staying loyal while she ran off to build her perfect life." "This isn't about sides," I interjected. "It's about professional respect and fair treatment." Tara turned on her heel and stormed back to the main hall. Mom watched her go with a conflicted expression. "She's always been emotionally reactive," she murmured almost to herself. "I thought I was helping her by making things easier, but perhaps I've done her a disservice too." The conversation was interrupted by Dad joining us, his expression strained. "Tara just left. She was quite upset." "I should go after her," Mom said, but Dad shook his head. "Let her cool down first," he advised. then turned to me. Claire, I know tonight isn't the time for business discussions, but would you consider meeting with us next week as professionals? I looked between my parents, seeing both the familiar patterns and the potential for something new. I'll think about it. I promised, neither committing nor refusing. As they left to find Tara, Jennifer appeared at my side. Well, that looked intense. You okay? I think so, I replied, surprised to find it was true. Something just shifted, though I'm not entirely sure what. What had changed, I realized later that night, was that for the first time in our family dynamic, I had been speaking from a position of strength rather than need. I no longer required their approval or acceptance. The power balance had fundamentally altered, creating space for a new kind of relationship to potentially emerge. The question was whether I wanted to step into that space, or whether some doors were better left closed. The cafe I chose for our meeting was neutral territory, a new establishment downtown that none of us had associations with. I arrived early, selecting a corner table that offered some privacy, while still being in a public space. Dad arrived first, punctual as always, with Mom following a few minutes later. They sat across from me, the small table creating an intimate setting that felt both appropriate and slightly uncomfortable. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Dad began after we'd ordered coffee. We appreciate you considering our proposal. I had spent the week since the awards ceremony consulting with my therapist and trusted friends, weighing the potential benefits and risks of re-engaging with the family business. I had also drafted a formal consulting proposal complete with scope of work deliverables and compensation requirements. Before we discuss any business arrangement, I said, placing my portfolio on the table, I need to be clear about my boundaries. I'm willing to consider working with Franklin Family Printing as a professional consultant, but only under clearly defined terms that recognize my expertise and compensate me appropriately. Mom nodded, her expression carefully neutral. That seems reasonable. I outlined my proposal, a 3-month contract to reassess the business's digital strategy, retrain staff on systems I'd implemented, and develop a sustainable plan they could maintain moving forward. My fee was industry standard for someone with my experience, with clear deliverables and expectations for all parties. This is a business arrangement, I emphasized, not a family favor. I'll bring my professional expertise, and in return, I expect professional treatment and compensation. Dad reviewed the document thoughtfully. The terms seem fair. We can make this work financially, especially if it helps get the business back on track. Mom's reaction was more measured. The fee is higher than I anticipated. It's market rate, I replied evenly. You're welcome to solicit other proposals for comparison. She studied me for a long moment. You've changed, Claire. Yes, I acknowledged. I have. After further discussion of logistics and expectations, they agreed to review the proposal and respond within 3 days. As we prepared to leave, Dad asked hesitantly about Tara's role in the arrangement. I'm willing to work with Tara as I would any staff member, I said carefully. But the dynamics need to be professional. No favoritism, no undermining. Mom bristled slightly but nodded. She'll need to adjust, but it's necessary for the business. 3 days later, I received a signed contract from Franklin Family Printing, accepting my terms without modification. The following Monday, I arrived at the shop not as a returning daughter, but as Claire Franklin, professional consultant. The atmosphere was notably tense that first morning. Mom maintained a formal politeness that felt foreign after years of criticism. Dad vacillated between relief at my presence and anxiety about the new dynamics. Tara was conspicuously absent, having arranged to be at a class during my initial hours. I conducted a thorough audit of their current operations, reviewing website analytics, social media performance, and recent client projects. The decline was even more significant than I'd anticipated. Many of the systems I'd implemented had been abandoned or incorrectly maintained. The website had broken links and outdated information. The social media accounts showed sporadic, inconsistent posting. We need to rebuild the digital infrastructure, I explained during our first strategy meeting, and establish sustainable processes that don't rely on any single person to maintain. I developed a phased plan that would address immediate issues while building toward long-term sustainability. Mom listened with surprising attentiveness, asking relevant questions without the dismissive tone I'd grown accustomed to. Dad contributed insights about client feedback, finally stepping into his role as business owner rather than peacekeeper. The real test came when Tara finally appeared for our scheduled training session. Her body language radiated resentment as she slumped into a chair in the conference room. "I already know how to use these systems," she claimed as I prepared to review the content management platform. "The analytics suggest otherwise," I replied matter-of-factly. "Let's start with the basics and see where the gaps are." As we worked through the training, Tara's initial hostility gradually gave way to reluctant engagement. When I acknowledged her quick grasp of certain concepts, she seemed surprised by the genuine praise. "You have good instincts for user experience," I noted as she suggested a navigation improvement. "That's something that can't really be taught." The faint smile she offered in response felt like the first authentic exchange we'd had in years. Over the following weeks, a new pattern began to emerge. Mom, seeing the positive client response to the renewed digital strategy, became more receptive to my recommendations. Dad found his voice in management meetings, no longer defaulting to Mom's decisions when he had different perspectives. And Tara, perhaps most surprisingly, began to show genuine interest in learning the skills I was teaching rather than resenting my expertise. "I never realized how much planning goes into a cohesive brand presence," she admitted one afternoon as we worked on content calendars. "I thought you just made things look pretty." "Design is problem solving as much as aesthetics," I explained. "Every color choice, font selection, and layout decision serves the larger communication goals." "Could you teach me some basic design principles?" she asked, the request free from her usual competitive edge. "Not to replace you, just to understand the process better." Then these small moments of connection accumulated gradually, creating space for a different kind of family relationship to develop alongside our professional one. Not perfect, not without echoes of old patterns, but substantively changed. The business stabilized under the new approach. I maintained my independent client base while fulfilling my consulting obligations to Franklin Family Printing. When clients asked about the arrangement, I explained simply that I provided specialized design services to several local businesses, including my family's. As the initial 3-month contract neared completion, Dad approached me about extending our arrangement. "The business is doing better than it has in years," he said, "and it's not just the financial improvement, the whole atmosphere has changed." We negotiated a part-time ongoing consultancy that allowed me to maintain my independent business while providing consistent support to the family shop. The arrangement respected my boundaries while acknowledging the value of maintaining family connections on healthier terms. A year after I had walked away from Franklin Family Printing, in the pre-dawn darkness, feeling wounded and undervalued, I stood in the redesigned shop, looking at the wall of project samples, now featuring a balanced representation of all team members' contributions. My name and role were clearly credited on the designs I'd created. Tara's growing skills were showcased in projects where she had taken the lead. The business had expanded to include dedicated digital services alongside traditional printing. Mom approached as I was studying a particularly successful campaign we'd recently completed for a local restaurant group. "I was wrong about a lot of things," she said without preamble, "including the belief that acknowledging your talents somehow diminished mine." I turned to face her, recognizing the admission for the monumental step it represented. "We're different people with different strengths," I replied. "The business is stronger for having both perspectives." She nodded, a hint of her old briskness returning. "The Hendersons called about their anniversary materials. They specifically requested you for the design work. I told them they'd made an excellent choice." It wasn't a dramatic reconciliation or a complete transformation. Mom would always be critical, Dad would always seek peace, Tara would always crave attention, and I would always need to guard against undervaluing my contributions. But the acknowledgement of these patterns had created space for growth and change, for relationships based on respect rather than obligation. The journey from exploitation to empowerment had taught me that sometimes walking away is necessary to be truly seen, that establishing firm boundaries can actually enable closer connections when those boundaries are respected. I had learned that my worth wasn't determined by my family's ability to recognize it, but that didn't mean I couldn't appreciate when they finally did. As I gathered my belongings to head to my own office for afternoon client meetings, I reflected on how far we had all come. The family dynamics weren't perfect, but they were healthier. The business was thriving under our combined strengths, and I was building a life and career that honored both my independence and my connections. What had begun as a painful revelation, family works for free, had transformed into a powerful lesson about valuing oneself. First, a lesson I hoped might resonate with others facing similar struggles. Have you ever had to stand up for your worth in a family or work situation? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that. Sometimes walking away opens the door to coming back on better terms. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that your value isn't diminished by others' failure to recognize it.